Good evening. Welcome to the April 17th, 2023 meeting of the Stillwater City Council. At this time, I'm going to call the meeting to order, and we have some representatives here tonight from Boy Scout Troop 828 who are going to help us with the Pledge of Allegiance. So Scouts, if you want to come up, and everybody else, please stand up for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Scouts. We appreciate y'all being here for our meeting. I know this is a requirement for one of the merit badges, which is fantastic. We appreciate y'all being here. I think more people in our community should try to go get the community merit badge by coming out and participating in city council meetings. So thank you all. All right, council, first up on the agenda, we have our consent docket. Comments or action on the consent docket?
I move approval of the consent docket.
We have a motion and a second to approve consent. Please vote. Consent docket's approved with a vote of 5-0. Public comment on items not scheduled for public hearing. I don't think we have anybody for that, so we will drop down to public hearings. Item 6A is to receive public comment regarding the proposed fiscal year 2023-2024 operating budget and consider action to incorporate changes presented during the public hearing and/or other changes identified by the council, and return to the council for review at the May 1st, 2023 meeting, or direct staff to proceed with adoption of the budget on May 1st as presented in the attached schedule. CC-23-59. Did we have good notice on the public hearing?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. Christy Cluck.
Yes. Good evening. Christy Cluck, Finance Director. And the proposed fiscal year 24 budget that was advertised for the public hearing, I want to just confirm that there's been no changes since you all saw that at the presentation at the May 27th meeting. At that meeting, council had asked staff to follow up with an explanation of the $19.6 million in projected citywide net income and just explain why that's not available for appropriation for general purposes. And so before we open the public hearing, I'm hoping that I can do that. So our total projected revenues in fiscal year 24 is $153.4 million. And that is represented here in this left column, that colorful column there. Of that $153.4 million, $27.1 million is unrestricted revenues of the general fund that can be used for general purposes. $62.8 million is unrestricted revenue of the SUA operating fund. And $63.5 million of our total revenues have some form of restriction or designation placed on them, whether that be by the council, the trustees, or even our voters. Examples of those restrictions are water and wastewater revenues that are designated for reinvestment in the water and wastewater systems. That represents about $22 million. 1 cent sales tax restricted for transportation projects, that's about $9.4 million. 1 cent sales tax restricted for the SUA, which is $9.4 million. Visitor tax, which is restricted for destination marketing efforts and visitor development amenities, that's about $1.3 million. Ad valorem taxes, which are restricted for retirement of general obligation bonds, as well as for carrying out purposes of our tax increment financing districts. And then capacity payments on the Stillwater Energy Center are designated for retirement of the revenue bonds that were issued to build that facility. That's about $4.2 million. And airport revenues restricted for airport purposes, which is about $3.1 million. So once that $153.4 million in projected revenues is allocated to those different buckets, we must then adjust those bucket balances for the transfers that occur between those buckets or between funds. So these are transfers for things such as health insurance claims and workers' comp claims paid out of the self-insurance fund, economic development initiatives, support of airport operations, and then our big one that we talk about all the time is our transfer from the SUA to the general fund to support general fund operations. The balances at the bottom of the columns on this slide is the adjusted balance after accounting for those transfers between those buckets. So after adjusting the revenue buckets for the transfers between those buckets, we can then adjust the buckets for the proposed annual expenses. Total proposed expenses for fiscal year 24 are $133.8 million. So the balances at the bottom of the columns is the adjusted balance of the buckets after the expenses are accounted for. The unrestricted general fund bucket is left with a zero balance. The unrestricted SUA operating fund bucket is left with a negative $2 million. We offset that negative $2 million by dipping into our available fund balance, which we talked about pretty extensively at the March 27th meeting. And then the restricted and designated bucket is left with a net income of $21.6 million. And this balance is not available for general purposes. So it can only be used for the purposes previously determined by actions of the council or the trustees or our voters. So this balance of $21.6 million will sit in these designated and restricted funds until a qualifying project is ready to move forward. And so again, those are things such as transportation projects, water projects, wastewater projects, and debt retirement.
Before you
Yes.
move on from that, Christy, that slide, this is, for lack of I'm not an accountant, but this is a P&L for the year, right? This is showing a negative $2 million on actual expenses over revenue for the year.
Correct.
Not necessarily so the 21.6 that's left over in restricted funds at the end of the year is added to what is already in those funds, right?
That is
That's
correct.
not the actual cash balance at
That's
the end
correct.
of the year. Okay.
Yes.
And the same with the negative $2 million. There is some fund balance in there
Yes.
that comes out of.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions before I move on? Okay.
So as I was looking through this and thinking about this, and we kept asking about the 19.6 million a couple of weeks back, the way I kind of got my head around it was we have those dollars accounted for on the revenue side, but because we don't know, we haven't identified the projects that they will go towards on the expense side, it is simply not accounted for yet, but will be accounted for instance, when a transportation project is on the books, then that money draws from that. So
That's
even though
correct.
it's not, so it's already in the revenue side, we're just not seeing it in the expense side yet.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And this is just trying to sum it all up in a single slide, so very high level. If we look at our total revenues, they're about $150 million. minus our total expenditures of about $130 million, and that leaves that $20 million in what we're calling net income that is sitting there awaiting those qualifying projects to be appropriated from those restricted and designated funds. There's a bonus slide in here for those that like numbers. It's all the same information. It's just in a table with numbers. And I'd be happy to answer any additional questions before the public hearing.
First of all, thank you for making that clear, because I was lost last week, and I think a few of the others were also, so thank you.
It was a team effort.
Okay. Thank you
Shout
for-
out to John McClinney.
Okay, thanks, the team.
It is very helpful because, we talk a lot about how municipal budgets and the way we fund things from the city, because of all the various rules, some of which are ours, some of which are the state, some of which are, who knows who else makes these rules, honestly. It can be very confusing for folks when they look at a budget and they go, well, you made 150, you're only spending 130, and now you're saying you don't have enough money, for these other things. And so this is very helpful to help explain that to folks in the public who, again, you look at a home budget and you go, well, you got $20 million in excess revenue. Let's go have a party.
Right.
So I appreciate the additional steps there.
Yeah, and I'll also add, I'm on. I'll also add that I was not here for the budget discussion, and I did watch the video, and I was trying to track it and had trouble tracking it too. So this was extraordinarily helpful. So
Good. I'm very glad.
Good. All right. Anything further for Christy? All right. At this time, then, I will open the public hearing. We do have one person signed up to speak at this public hearing, Mr. Roger Gose. Good evening, Roger.
Thank you. Good evening. Roger Gose, 1120 East Connell. I was one of those confused a couple of weeks ago also. And I've had some good discussions with Christy and Melissa. And a lot of the questions I had, I think she's done a good job. In my world, I think of these restricted monies, you all call them, but I call them allocated. They're allocated to road projects. So then I go, well, why do we have $22 million sitting there not getting spent? And I think that's what needs to happen, is some of this needs to get out of there, get done, so that people see things being done. And we don't have any money to fix roads, but we're sitting there with $22 million or whatever the number is. We can't fix our water lines. We got a lot of money sitting there. We got a lot of broken water lines and fire hydrants. I know we don't have the manpower to fix those. I suggest you look at sending it outside to contractors and get it done. There's a whole lot of fire hydrants around town with plastic bags on them that are rotten now. There was 100 fire hydrants that were not operable when somebody from the fire department went through a year ago and tested them. And just those, and some of them were brand new, so I'm glad staff has done a really good job of making sure all those fire hydrants operate now before they accept them. And I don't think that was happening, and that's been a good deal. But it's just all these different balances. Yet, we tell people we don't have any money. We're not getting any capital monies. We're not getting money for raises. So it's explaining it as allocated or something. It's got a purpose already. So appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here. I don't have anyone else signed up to speak. Was there anyone else here who planned to speak at the public hearing? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. And Chrissy, could you just let us know what the plan is from here on?
So if there are no changes being asked of the council, then we will bring back resolutions for budget adoption at the May 1st meeting.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Chrissy. I do think, that's just to address what Mr. Gose said. We spoke about that at our last discussion on the budget and the idea of finding ways to spend down some of those fund balances. We have spent time over the last several years making sure that we don't save too much for a rainy day, because we've actually got rainy days here right now. And so I think it's well taken. I think there's also, it's a balancing act between making sure we have the reserves we need for that, big rainy day that might come versus actually getting stuff done that needs to get done. So we will continue to to work on that balance. So, all right, nothing else on that item. We will move on to item 7, general orders. I was wondering why Christy was still sitting here, but she's up on general orders item 7A. Consider approval of audit committee recommendations to engage HSPG and Associates of Oklahoma City to perform audit for the city of Stillwater.
Yes, so staff is seeking authorization to engage an audit firm to perform the fiscal year 2023 audit of all city funds and related trust authorities, to include an audit of grant funds and a passenger facility charge audit that's required by the Federal Aviation Administration. City staff solicits proposals for audit services every 3 years, with annual review by the city's audit committee as well as the city council. 4 proposals were received and evaluated by staff. The goal of staff and the audit committee is to select a highly qualified accounting firm with considerable expertise in governmental accounting and auditing, so as to ensure that the city is receiving a high-quality audit. Pricing is then considered to ensure fiscal responsibility. The audit committee met on March 21st and reviewed the proposal evaluations, and the proposal summary is included in your packet, as is the draft of the meeting minutes. In reaching a recommendation, the audit committee gave specific consideration to the close qualification scoring of the top 2 firms. They scored 98 and 96 out of 100. The length of the engagement with the current audit firm, BT & Co. of Topeka, Kansas, which is at 11 years. They also considered support of an Oklahoma firm to perform the audit, and also the cost of the audit. So I have a recommendation, but we'll pause for questions.
Councilors, any questions?
Well, I'll just also comment that I have the privilege of being the city councilor assigned to that committee, and there was a pretty robust conversation around stick with what we have and what we know, or branch out to another firm. And one of the things that was talked about a lot is the idea of fresh eyes coming in and maybe identifying things that we're not thinking about today. You mentioned an Oklahoma firm, but it was, there was also a conversation about, we were sort of disappointed we only had a handful of firms apply, and one of the members suggested maybe a 5-year cycle might be more attractive than a 3-year cycle. You have work to do to see if it's even legal to do that, and but there was a real good conversation around this, and the audit committee was very comfortable with this choice. But it wasn't necessarily an easy choice, because we had a lot of good history with BT & Co.
Yes.
Further questions? What's your recommendation?
So the audit committee recommends that the firm HSPG and Associates PC of Oklahoma City be engaged to perform the audit for the city of Stillwater and related trust authorities for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2023.
Councilors, further comments or action on the recommendation?
Motion to accept staff recommendations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. The staff's recommendation is approved with a vote of 5-0. And thank you to the audit committee for the work they do. That is a very important job for our community, and those folks are all volunteers that come in and provide their service, and it is a valuable one, and we appreciate it. Item 7B, update and discussion on the timeline for the electric rate cost of service study, water, wastewater, and rural water rates and cost of service study, and rural fire contract rate study. Melissa Reams.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. Melissa Reams, Deputy City Manager. I'm here this evening to give you a brief update and timeline on some rate studies that will be coming your way, and at some point we will be asking you to make decisions based on the recommendations from those consultants. Currently, we have an electric rate study going with LM Vetter Consulting. This is Lisa Vetter, who we've worked with probably 4 or 5 years now. She was with Avant when we went through that initial study. She is on the current timeline. She expects to be able to present to you late May, early June. Water, wastewater, and a rural water rate study. It's a rate study and a cost of service study together, and so is the electric as well. That's with New Gen Strategies.
Again, we've used NewGen over the years for different rate studies, and water is had been with Avant, and now we've moved to NewGen. We got a little late start on that water. He is going to have some preliminary numbers for you the 1st of June, so we can look at that. Jacobs Engineering presented to us when we were over at the community center, meeting over there on stormwater. And again, I am more and more looking at stormwater as a utility. That presentation is available. They put forth their recommendation in October of 2021, and we will bring that back for your consideration in June when we bring back the other studies. And finally, we have contracted with NewGen Strategies to do a rate and cost of service study on our rural fire contract. And if you'll remember right now, individuals that live outside the corporate city limits can insure their property, so to speak, with a $100 rural fire contract. That limits the amount that we will charge them for a response call to $2,000. And so that, to me, is a bargain in any market. But we want to make sure that we don't have the people inside the corporate city limits subsidizing the people that live outside the corporate city limits. So that's why we're doing the rate study there. That one we probably can bring to you in June. Dave will be done with that study. But again, we have a little bit of time on that one. Those are calendar year agreements, and you can start renewing that agreement in December. So we could legitimately start talking about that any time between June moving into, probably October would be the latest I would push that one. Right now, there's no impact to the budget, but these are potential revenue sources as we move forward. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Counselors?
Are the other, in terms of changing rates, are they based on calendar year or fiscal year?
It depends, and in the past, we've tried to split them up. So water, wastewater would be adjusted in July, and electric would be adjusted in January. But we can do this however we see fit to do this. There's nothing carved in stone. I think trying to split it up so it's not just such a big burden for our ratepayers is certainly a consideration that we want to work on.
I do appreciate that, even though we have to look at them individually and the cost of service that it takes to provide those utilities. I do appreciate that they're all kind of coalescing at the same time, so we can sort of understand what the wider impact is to the community and ratepayers.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is this NewGen, is this the same company that worked with us on the recycling task force?
Yes, I believe it is.
Okay.
Yeah. They're out of Austin, or at least Dave is out of Austin, and he's the principal on this engagement.
I also appreciate that we try to stagger when those get implemented, just so we don't hit people all at once.
Right. And I think he will bring in a staged implementation. We can't make up a couple of years of lost ground overnight. That's not going to do any of us any good. So.
Thank you, Melissa.
You're welcome.
There's nothing further on item B. We'll move to item C. Consider authorizing staff to proceed with the replacement of an animal welfare facility in a public safety district on the November 14th ballot measures. Melissa?
So coming to you this evening with these two additional questions to go on the November ballot. And the first one is our animal welfare building. That building was dedicated in 1984, I think. And it has served us well, but much like Fire Station number 2, it's outlived its useful life. So we need to start looking at replacing it. Staff has hired an architect, out of Tulsa, Brian Thomas, and he is also the architect for the Stillwater Public School District. So he's going to be working with us on this animal welfare building. He is going to get to a conceptual design so that we can have a very good feel for how much money we need to ask for on the ballot. And we had our kickoff meeting with him and his wife, Mary, last week. And I think we've got a fairly decent handle. We've got 3 proposed properties for you all to consider. Currently, Bill Millis in engineering is going to do pros and cons because each site has its downside and its upside. So we want to make the best decision that we can with the money that we're going to have. So that's the first ballot question that I would like for you all to consider. And then secondly, a couple of years ago, the legislature enacted, it was Senate Bill 838, and I think this is and it created for citizens or for municipalities a Oklahoma Public Safety Protection District, and this is the act that creates those districts. By a vote of the people, by 60%, it's not a simple majority, but it's by 60%, we can add 5 mills to everybody's property taxes each year. And that money is dedicated, according to the act, I was trying to get there. So purchasing and maintaining public safety equipment, purchasing and maintaining public safety vehicles. So in my mind, I see police cars and fire apparatus. Salaries and benefits, we seem to take care of that on our own, and I think that we are, from our side of the house, we are well positioned, let's put it that way. And then if we still were running the ambulance, we could buy things for that emergency medical services. This act...
Melissa, give me an example of emergency medical services. What does that mean exactly?
An ambulance. That's what it is.
Okay.
And a lot of fire departments run their own ambulance service. Right. We divested ourselves of that, and that's why we have WAPCATA.
Okay.
And then finally, once this is enacted, if we put this on the ballot and the citizens vote to have a public safety protection district, it can only be dissolved by a majority vote of the people again. It has to be dissolved by the methodology that it was used to create it.
But not with a supermajority, a majority.
It doesn't specify here.
It says majority, so that would be 50% plus 1. Okay.
You would think. So that's the second question second question we'd like to put on the November 14th ballot. That would bring in, based on our net assessed value for 2022, it's about $2 million and change. And that can go a long ways to funding every year tranches of police vehicles that we need to get back into that very good refresh cycle. It can help us with our fire apparatus and keeping that in that good refresh cycle as well. That's really where staff's mind has gone with this, is that equipment that we're so very challenged with right now.
The equipment that we have been buying has been coming out of general fund, correct?
Correct, out of your sales tax dollars.
Councilors, questions? Mr. McNichol?
Just a reminder that if you look at the budget, you will see that public safety takes a huge bite out of the general fund, and probably appropriately so, but it does impact those things that Mr. Ghost was talking about in terms of our ability to provide some of the rest of the services. Talking about roughly $19 million, close to 20, and very little general fund revenue left after those services are paid for. So one of the reasons that we are advocating for this measure.
Yeah, and I think I was an advocate for the passage of that bill. I think we need to pass more of those types of bills in this state. State of Oklahoma is the only state in the union that does not allow the use of ad valorem taxes for general municipal purposes. It is a very poor funding mechanism that makes cities rely on sales tax. And so it is a good step forward to have the opportunity on this focused on public safety to allow the diversification of our revenue sources. Every business, people talk about running government like a business, which doesn't make a lot of sense in some places, but certainly when it comes to diversified revenue, the different types of revenue that we're able to tap into, so we're not totally reliant on the whims of sales tax, the better. So I think this, is a difficult conversation, I think, for our community, just because taxes are always a difficult conversation. But I do think allowing us to offset some of the burden on sales tax with ad valorem taxes is a much better long-term strategy for our community as a whole. So
And I did some quick calculations for you. These are rough, so please don't hold me to these, but the median price of a home here in Stillwater per the Board of Realtors is $219,500. If you go through the math, you take that times the assessment ratio, and that gets you down to the assessed value, subtract out a homestead exemption, and that gets you to your net taxable value or your adjusted value. And then you divide that. Remember, a mill is $1 per tax for every $1,000 increment. So 1 mill in this instance would be equal to $24, right? I get myself so turned around on this stuff, but that's, 1 mil times the 24, you would get $24. So if we look at what our millage in 2022 was, it's $101.23 per $1,000 increment. So we had 24 increments times the 101.23. The property tax for 2022 on that average price home should have been $2,432. Then if we add the 5 mills for public safety, so 5 mills, $5 per each one of these $1,000 increments. So 5 times 24 is 120. And then the animal welfare bond, according to some projections that our financial advisors did for us, would be about $1.33 or 1.33 mils times the 24. That gets us to the $32. And this is annual. So your annual out of pocket is $152, $12.67 per month. That's one lunch out at Red Rock. Maybe. Miso? No. Maybe.
What is the estimated amount we would need to bond for the Animal Welfare Center?
Currently, we have in our minds about $5 million. That's really why I wanted the architect on board so early, is I wanted him to be able to do some really good estimates for us so that we can get the animal welfare building that's appropriate to our needs as our community grows. And I'm just going to give you this little plug for the animal welfare building. I don't imagine I need to convince you all, but it's really become more of a people issue than it is an animal issue. We're trying to get people to voluntarily comply with the codes that are on the books as they deal with their animals, be they the backyard chickens or the errant goats that come running down Main Street, and our animal welfare people have to get out there and corral them. We've had to go after a cow up on Perkins Road. So it's not just, dogs and cats, predominantly dogs and cats. But even then, it's how do we as a community want to govern ourselves when it comes to the animals that we all love. And we have such a great staff in place right now. They're young and they're enthusiastic and they're thinking outside the box. They have made our shelter continue to be, really, for all intents and purposes, a no-kill shelter. And that's quite an amazing feat these days. So this is going to be a place we're hoping that people will want to come. My daughter, when she was in college, would go sit in the cat room at the Humane Society because she needed some little furry friends to love on her. And I think there's a lot of college students. That's why we have Pete's Posse up on campus. So it's a people issue.
think I saw on their Facebook that they had an iguana.
They may have. They've had more variety of animals than I would ever have imagined.
And they're looking for an iguana temporary home, a hospice.
Oh,
or something.
really?
Yep.
He needs a foster home.
Yes.
Not at my house, but
So Melissa, what is the,
so our
Move forward.
recommendation, we would like for you to vote to give us the ability to proceed with the replacement animal welfare facility and the public safety district and add that to the November 14th, 2023 ballot. And we will bring back a resolution in July for your consideration to get that ballot started and get that placed on the voter, for the voters.
I had one quick question before we. In our last ballot initiative, we had a really nice public-facing campaign talking out with the public as the intention for this to be the same.
So Dawn, do you want to join me for just a minute? Dawn has been our team's leader. Time is going to be to Stillwater like MAPS is to Oklahoma City. And that's why we keep using Together Investing in Municipal Excellence. But Dawn's developed the timeline, and of course the timeline is fluid and changing, but I will let her speak to that right now.
Good evening. We have mimicked much of our Fire Station 2 campaign with animal welfare, and we built out an entire timeline, including presentation tonight. But that includes multiple opportunities to meet with community stakeholders and voters, whether it's face-to-face at hosting various community meetings, even including online, so that we can reach that audience that would prefer it that way, to include a survey to kind of get some feedback a little bit. That would go through our new website, and then also just to meet with some of our community groups around town. And so just very much like the efforts with Fire Station 2 to get that feedback. And we've kind of learned from things we could have improved upon and built that into this. So does that help?
yep, thank you.
Okay.
Maybe it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. Let's not build an animal welfare for today. Let's build one for 20 years from now.
Yeah.
Because, we only get one shot at this every 20 years or so. So let's make sure we can grow into it.
Right.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I've heard stories that basically this facility was undersized the day we opened it. And we need to make sure it's built appropriately for the future.
Yep.
Just like we do with water systems.
Exactly. And that's part, again, why we wanted the architect on board, so we could maybe add alternates, and maybe we don't do it right now, but we want expansion part of the project so that we could continue to develop and expand.
Okay.
Counselors, any action on the staff's recommendation?
I move to approve staff recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the staff's recommendation. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that recommendation is approved, and we look forward to hearing more about that ballot measure.
We will bring that back to you in July.
Thank you. Item 7D is Johnson Controls presentation regarding performance-based efficiency contract, consideration of approval of a performance-based efficiency contract, and possible action.
So we have heard from Johnson Controls back in January, and they are back this evening. We have been able to work with them to get a financing arrangement that I think will be better suited to our community and our needs. But they are here this evening, and I want them again to come up and present to you their projects that they have selected to move forward with in this. And I think this is a phased approach. I think we will see them back again with a second phase of projects as we can tolerate them. Anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Caleb Camerunas. He's here along with some staff member or team members, and I will let him take it from there.
Good evening, Mayor Joyce, City Council, Mr. McNichol, Ms. Melissa. Thank you for having me tonight. And my name's Caleb Cameronis, and I'm with Johnson Controls Sustainable Infrastructure Team that, I'm the primary point of contact that's worked on this project with your staff. And so we're here to talk about very similar to when we were here last time, but Mr. Walski, you asked us to give the origin story or the history of the project, and I want to spend a little bit more time talking about how we got to where we are today, and then how we can help and why this project matters. So probably 3, 4, 5 years ago, the city staff was looking at different projects, different issues that we have around town, and thinking, wouldn't it be nice if we could work on this project? Wouldn't it be great if we can work on this project? And some of what goes into that is an understanding that there's an issue. We're not able to execute this project right now for whatever reason. And part of what we've seen in working with staff is this idea of limited revenue sources but increasing costs. It's begun to be a snowball of an issue. And normally what happens on projects or with cities is the idea of deferred maintenance. So when the budgets start to get tight, one of the things that naturally gets cut is working on equipment. And when you don't maintain equipment properly, you begin to see failing infrastructure and a heavier burden placed on capital improvement plans. And so the city staff was tasked with, how do we solve this issue? How do we go out and find something that's creative with the budget that we have? And this project was a result of it. At the same time, we had the Renewable Energy Task Force working on the Energy Action Plan. And some of the things that the Energy Action Plan focused on was the idea of, let's lead in Oklahoma by example. Let's focus on efficiency first. Let's look at LED retrofits in city facilities where practical. Let's try and implement a 10% LED retrofit in our streetlights annually, tighten some of these leaky city buildings, and add smart thermostats to increase efficiency. And the result of the city and the Renewable Energy Task Force effort is this project. So how Johnson Controls can help, the whole idea is really looking at the budget that Stillwater has and the facility state that exists right now and increase efficiency. And when we're increasing efficiency, we're creating savings, and all we're doing is taking those savings and redirecting them to projects that currently do not have a funding source. So this little bit of a roadmap that you were asking us for, we went back, spent some time, and actually made some phone calls. Thank you, Mr. John, for the help on the origin story. So I already went over a little bit of this. Wouldn't it be great if we can work on these projects? And back in 2021, the city was introduced to the idea of performance contracting and saw a solution to a lot of the issues. And the route that was decided to be taken was an RFP process. So the RFP was put out in January of 2022, and we received the RFP, we reviewed it, made a lot of phone calls again to Mr. McClenny, talking over the project. What exactly was the city looking for? What's the history of the project? And we decided to submit a proposal. And all the proposals were reviewed, and then an interview was conducted. And the interview selection committee was staffed by 4 Renewable Energy Task Force members, 2 of which, hey Robin, I didn't see you earlier, 2 of which are here tonight, and a few city staff members. So Mr. James Driscoll was on the selection committee, as well as Mr. Lawrence Smith, Becky Taylor, and John McClenny both participated. And after listening to all the interviews, all the proposals and interviews were scored, and Johnson Controls was selected in June. The selection was presented to the city council, and we were approved to conduct an investment grade audit on the project, which is really just digging through the current status and putting a project together. So immediately after approval, we began to work with city staff and conduct interviews. So if I sent my engineers out and we walked through all the city facilities by ourselves, we could probably determine all of the issues that the facilities have, but it's a whole lot easier and better to interview city staff and find out what are the problems that you have, what are you actually interested in addressing. So that way we don't develop a Johnson Controls project, we develop a City of Stillwater project. And in those interviews, we ask questions about, what are the issues that you have? What are the goals that you have? If the budget permitted it, what would you do today? So really trying to figure out what the city was interested in and what their goals were. So all of that culminated in the August timeframe with an ideation session where we got city staff, the Renewable Energy Task Force together and put all of the information from the city staff interviews out on the table so that other people could identify, I didn't bring this up in my interview, but I also have that problem. Let's address that at my facility as well. So really we get a great picture of the needs and the direction desired from the city and began to put a project together that really was customized by the city, not Johnson Controls. After that process, and we developed the project, we sat down with Mr. McNichol and Ms. Reams and really started to right-size the project for Stillwater. So we had, there are projects that are contributors and there are projects that, contributing to the savings, and there are projects that suck those savings away. So the effort was really, we've got this long list of projects and needs. How do we put these together in the right way that addresses financial stewardship as well as mitigating risk? So there are facilities that have equipment that are at greater risk than other facilities, and those were the ones that we focused on. And finally, in the March timeframe, our councils worked together, and Ms. Carnley and our council approved the terms and conditions of our final contract. So that's the roadmap, is how we got to here. So the projects that we worked on, there's really 3 different categories of projects: facilities-based, street lighting-based, and then water. So in the facilities, we're working on 450,000 square feet of interior LED lighting retrofit. And then 46 of your facilities, we're going to seal the envelopes, and 187,000 square feet of HVAC retrofit at the municipal building and the library, as well as updated controls at both. So all of those projects combine for a 30% facilities energy reduction. So when we begin a project, we target somewhere in the realm of 25 to 35% energy savings. So on the facility side, we're doing pretty well. On the street lighting side, it was a home run. So we're working on 4,372 street and security light LED retrofits, as well as control modules. And that project, or those 2 projects, achieve a 66% energy reduction. On the water front, 13 facilities are improved with water conservation measures for a 12% water reduction. And then for water meters, there are 49 large water meters that are going to be replaced or repaired. And what we're trying to achieve is increasing the accuracy of those meters so that the city is treating water and that water is going through those meters. So we're trying to ensure that the city is compensated for the water that's actually flowing through it.
So by large meters, you mean industrial meters, or what does large meter mean?
Anywhere from 2 inches to 6 inches.
Okay.
So really just not residential meters, sir. So the financial highlights of the project is $13.52 million. And in total, we're saving $22.5 million over the term of the project. So breaking that down a little bit, the utility savings is $9 million. Operations and maintenance, we're saving $10.8 million. And then those water meters that we were talking about, those aren't savings, that's increased revenue. So the revenue increase due to the guaranteed accuracy of the water meters is $100,000 annually. A little bit of a recap on those statistics. The percent savings in water for those facilities is 12%. And then the combined total of the facilities energy savings as well as the streetlight energy savings is 47%. So if you remember, we target somewhere between 25 and 35% energy savings. And for this project, it's a savings of 47%. I'm very excited about that. It's fantastic. So the financing rate in, the ups and downs of the market right now, we were able to secure with our partners a 3.74% interest rate over a 20-year period. And finally, that annual measurement and verification where Johnson Controls comes in and proves that we're performing as we're performing, that's reviewed by you and signed off on, annual $36,000. Any questions on that?
So, at the end of 20 years, do we own these devices? Do you own them? What happens in the 20 years? What's the next step out there look like?
The equipment is yours, sir.
Okay.
And the things that you're replacing, when we talk about retrofitting LED lights and such, do they have a 20-year life, or would they need to be replaced more than once throughout that time frame?
So the lifespan of the equipment is over the 20-year period. There are aspects of the equipment, or there are pieces of the equipment that will not last 20 years, but there are pieces of the equipment that, due to the normal maintenance procedures, you would replace anyway.
And is that part of what's included in the cost of the project or not?
We do not maintain the equipment. That's part of the agreement, that the city, we work with the city to maintain the equipment. So during that annual measurement and verification, we will look at the equipment to see if it's being maintained correctly and provide that feedback.
But if I guess my question is, if something needs to be done to the equipment or something has to be replaced, that's not part of what's included in the cost of the project. That's an additional cost.
That is correct.
Is it being accounted for in that O&M savings number?
Ask that question
On your
again.
slide, you had a savings of 10 million on operations and maintenance. I assume that includes the fact that, the maintenance on an LED light versus the maintenance on our current light bulbs is lower. That's where that O&M savings
That's correct.
comes from. So we're replacing this equipment. Yes, there's still maintenance cost to it, but overall, there's a $10.8 million savings
That's exactly
on the
right.
maintenance that we would be doing on the equipment we have now.
Yes, sir. So we worked with.
Please. If you could come to the microphone, we'd appreciate it.
Just a couple of clarifications. One for you. In regards to the lighting components, we do have a 10-year warranty as part of the project. So if there's costs incurred for the lighting, that's under warranty. And because of our national relationships, we buy a lot of lights. And, we're able to get a really good warranty as part of the project. And then for the other equipment, the operations and maintenance numbers that we had for the full amount, we actually worked in conjunction with the city. So individuals within their departments, they shared some information with us, and we had a back and forth about the kind of savings it would generate when we put in this new equipment. And so all of those numbers were vetted through those folks. But it really comes from putting in new equipment when you have old deferred maintenance. If you have really old equipment and you continue to maintain it, it costs more and more and more to maintain it because parts are obsolete and things of that nature.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, Pete is right. So we worked with city staff to ensure, that we're not going to take the entire O&M budget. That would be unreasonable. So if we're replacing the equipment, you want the appropriate amount left over in that O&M budget to maintain the equipment.
In your presentation, I heard you mention that you looked at mitigating risk. Could you give me an example of the risk you're talking about there?
Yes, sir. So the two places that mitigating risk was taken into account was the library and the municipal building. So the equipment on the library, I think the average age is close to 30 years old. And they've already started to see some of the equipment fail. And the specific type of equipment that's there, it's once some of it starts to fail, you know that the rest of it is en route. So what we tried to do was to mitigate the financial burden that's on the way and replace that equipment preemptively.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So you showed a $13 million project cost, $22 million total savings, something like that.
Yes, sir.
I mean, with the financing costs, with the annual measurement and verification costs, what is the total, is that project size 13.5 over the life of the 20 years, or is that the before financing and annual maintenance?
The before financing.
So do you know what that number is after financing?
Not the exact number, but it is less than the 22.5.
Do we know that number?
Cash flow. So if you put in all of the cost with the financing, measurement and verification, and you subtract the savings, and the other thing is that we actually guarantee the savings, so that on an annual basis, if we don't achieve the savings, we pay the delta of what's actually achieved. And so it's actually going to yield $865,000 worth of positive cash flow. So if you're actually going to be making a little bit of money every year, approximately $40,000.
So to answer your question specifically, the total annual cost is $21,631,018.
That's the life of the project cost.
That's correct, over the term.
20-year cost.
20-year cost.
The 20-year cost.
Okay.
So your carrying charges on the debt, I don't think we broke out the interest, did we? No.
No, ma'am, we didn't.
We can get you that.
Well,
Before, the last time they presented in January, we had an offer from a bank, Webster Bank, and the interest rate then was 4.11. The carrying charges based on that projection were about $7 million over the 20-year lifespan. This new rate that we've gotten, 3.74, which we're ecstatic about, that's 36 basis points lower than where we were. So go down from 7 million. It's probably 6 million maybe in that realm. But we can get you those answers. We can get that broken out for you.
so what is the actual financing mechanism here? I mean, what are we signing?
The way this is going to work is in the Johnson Controls contract, there is a draw schedule. Just like if you were to build your own home, you would make a draw. That's what this is going to look like. Johnson Controls, I think, doesn't really care where we get the money. They want us to meet those draw demands when they come through. And from their side of the house, us having the ability to borrow the full amount gives them that peace of mind that, yes, when they present us with a draw payment, that it's going to be able to be made. When they went back out into the market as a courtesy to us, they requested proposals from Webster Bank, from Simmons Bank, and from Bank of America. Now remember, we have relationships with Simmons Bank and we have relationship with Bank of America. Bank of America came back with the best, strongest offer. I have not seen the offer in its totality. We've been kind of focused on the interest rate, but there was supposed to be a 60 to 90 day rate lock in there, and also the ability for us to pay down on this $13.52 million note if we had the available capital and it made sense to do so. One of the examples of that might be Lauren and the electric utility had already proposed an LED lighting project for street lights and the security pole lights.
Just real quick, I'm sorry.
No.
I hope that was going to be a simpler question.
Oh, okay.
Is this the SUA would be borrowing
That
the money
question
from
is
a
still
bank?
up in the air.
Is the city's not?
We think, I mean, realistically, the city should borrow this because the bulk of the
Through
improvements.
what kind of a mechanism, though? Is it a,
Well,
Mayor,
it's
if I
a
may-
TELUP. It's a tax-exempt lease purchase.
The project financing needs to be reviewed by bond counsel. It's a tax-exempt lease purchase agreement. It is specifically authorized under the statutory authority to enter performance-based efficiency contracts. So the approval tonight would be to approve entering the contract and to proceed with the project financing. It does require an opinion of bond counsel, and closing of that project financing would come back to the city.
so within that financing mechanism, are we pledging those certain O&M budgets, or where are we actually designating which
Yes.
parts of our budget are being pledged against this long-term debt?
Well, Christy and I haven't quite figured out how that mechanism's going to work. But basically, what I think you're budgeting for is you're budgeting for that annual payment in our debt service fund. And so, again, where do we get the money for debt service? It comes from an ad valorem request, and I haven't even thought through whether this might be, I don't know, we're going to have to look at that. I don't think it necessarily would be something we could add to the tax rolls. So we have to budget for it.
So my understanding is that there would be certain savings in electric of power that we did not have to buy. So
Sure.
a portion of that budget would come from electric. The same thing holds true with the water. And again, a majority of this, because the systems that are being replaced are in general fired by electricity, with the exception of the heat. And there would be a savings in gas as well. So those amounts would be applied to those accounts. So the savings, some of it would come from the SUA, some of it would come from the general fund, from funds that are normally budgeted for things like natural gas. But again, a lion's share of it would come from the SUA in power that we did not have to purchase.
Okay. I guess my concern is just knowing, if we're going out and getting this loan from the bank to pay for the project costs, the bank has some security interest in something, I would assume.
It's in the revenue
is it-
stream.
Yeah, but we don't, the city doesn't do revenue bonds, and we can't do, this isn't a GO bond. So how this is a totally different animal that we're allowed to do under this specific law. I get that. I'm just wondering, what does it require us? Do we have to set aside certain accounts? Is that how this normally works? You guys do this?
Yeah, this is a pretty common funding mechanism. So it's a tax-exempt lease purchase. It's really a series of annually appropriated debts, but they're annually appropriated. They also have a non-appropriations clause built into them. But what you're going to do is you're going to set it up so that we've got the savings from the program, the utility savings, the operational savings, and the water revenue. We actually guarantee meter accuracy times the rate, but it creates a dollar amount. And that's there to offset the annual money that you're spending on the tax-exempt lease purchase. And what allows you to do this as a funding mechanism is that we provide the guarantee of savings, which means you're going to have the funds available in order to retire the debt service. And that's this whole program was really created about 30, 40 years ago just for that, for cities, school districts that needed a funding mechanism for multiple years. And this is probably, we do about $1 billion worth of governmental business a year. This is our kind of our go-to a way of funding these kind of programs for public institutions.
So if we choose not to appropriate whatever it is we owe you for the year, because we don't have the money, or we owe the bank for the year.
So the negative downside of not appropriating it would impact your credit rating just because you've defaulted on an obligation. The way we get our money, though, back to the draw schedules, and the way this actually works, it's somewhat helpful for the city. So we're doing a $13 million construction project, and we're actually being paid along the way as a contractor, just like you normally would with a project. But what we've done is we've arranged the financing to not start until the job's complete. That way we've got the savings in place and they're ready to go ahead and have that amount to offset that dollar amount. So we've actually deferred the payments that you'll be making to the lending institution until the project's complete.
Until which part of the project? All of it?
Mm-hmm.
So we
Yeah.
don't make payments on it until, I mean, I thought the streetlights were like a 10-year cycle.
You're making draw schedule payments, but you're doing it from an arbitrage account that's created by the lending institution. And that account will draw down as it gets done. So we basically built in the interim interest on that arbitrage account.
Okay.
I'm trying to be as plain speak as
No,
possible.
I appreciate it.
So
That's
I'm-
actually
So then that's
helpful.
actually like when you build a home and you've got, right, you don't actually start your mortgage payments until, gotcha.
But I think much as Christie made us better understand what she was talking about at the budget meeting, we need to see something that helps us understand the money flows, where it comes from, where it goes, so we understand what we're doing. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, I think that
That helps.
helped to understand it that way, that it's an annual appropriation that we're making. And because you all are guaranteeing that we will have that money in the bank, so to speak.
It's minimized your risk.
So, yeah, so if we don't actually have the funds because you didn't save us as much as you were going to save us, then you're the one making that payment.
We make you whole for that, that delta. Exactly.
That
You've
makes
got it.
much more sense.
If for some reason it's not the equipment, so the bank would have the right to.
We need you at the microphone so the viewers can hear you.
Good evening, my name's Maureen Blaze. The only thing I was going to comment is the bank would actually have the right to take your rooftop package unit off your building. So that's really what they are tying the note to, right? The equipment that is being sold.
Sure, yeah.
So, they feel that that's important, they feel that's vital equipment, therefore you're not going to walk away from the loan. From a security.
Understood, yeah. But we're not going to, unless we don't actually have any money. And if we don't have the money, then you're paying for it. Okay, that makes sense to me.
So Melissa, one more question. Does this add to on our balance sheet? Does this show up as more debt on our balance sheet?
I believe that it would, yes.
So-
And I have that question out to our financial advisors at Bank of Oklahoma. And we need to be watching our debt levels. That was a part of the conversation that we had on March the 27th, was these alternative methods of financing. And we have not only this large project, but if you'll recall, how can we forget? We have a $65 million raw water storage project on the horizon. And Mr. McNichol and I were talking about this morning. I don't see, certainly we're going to get bits and pieces along the way, but I don't think that we're going to have 65 million just drop in our lap. And so then we have to start looking at some of these other methodologies, a little bit from rate increases, maybe a little bit from a GO bond issue. We have to start staging that and want to be very cognizant of how we spend our available debt limit.
Melissa, do we have a comment from financial advisors on the effect of this specific kind of debt as opposed to a general obligation bond? Or
No,
a bond?
I just sent that to them at the end of the day, so I will get that answer back from them and send it out to you, but I would think this would be part of that consideration of debt. Now, if it's housed on the general fund side, the general fund doesn't really carry a lot of debt.
Yeah.
As opposed to the SUA side.
I mean, the general fund can't carry any debt.
Well, but how is this Mayor, how is this different than our copier lease contracts?
Well, okay, understood. Yeah, we
Okay.
can talk about that later.
Yeah.
All right. We interrupted in the middle of a presentation.
Okay, all right. So we went over the city goals and challenges and the idea of the set revenue amount and increase in cost, as well as the parallel path that the Renewable Energy Task Force was taking. And laying out goals and challenges to the city. And like I said, both of these efforts culminated in this project, and we're going to go through some of these solutions and outcomes that the project produces. So like we saw, the project saves and reinvests $22.5 million into needed projects with no other funding. It preserves your capital for other needs without a method of paying back for those projects, and creates a more stable operating and capital budget because you're removing some of those projects that are looming. Avoids future increased costs by accomplishing the work now, and drives innovation with enhanced community engagement like we had with the Renewable Energy Task Force on this project. Just a recap on some of the statistics that we went over. So the 12% reduction in facilities water consumption, 30% reduction in facilities energy consumption, the 66% reduction in street light energy consumption, and the facilities and the street light projects both combined for the 47% reduction in total electric and gas consumption.
Does the streetlight project include park lighting and our field lighting? Like our sports field lighting? Do you know?
That was part of the project that
is
had to be de-scoped. So we had Babcock Park in there, for example, and we removed that in the process of right-sizing the project.
Okay. So it wouldn't include that sports field, but what about like Strickland, or does Strickland have lights? Strickland has lights.
No,
It doesn't include those.
correct, it does
Understood. Thank you. What else? Is that the end?
not. That's the end of the
Okay.
presentation. Sorry about that, yeah.
Counselors, questions?
So, Mrs. Carnley, exactly what are we being asked to do tonight, if anything?
Well, you can certainly take action on approving a performance-based efficiency contract with Johnson Controls. You're also being asked to approve their proposed project financing, which is a tax-exempt lease purchase agreement pursuant to the proposals received. I've not seen those proposals, but I think, have we reviewed them yet?
None of which was in our packet.
Okay. That's correct. So you can take action on those items. They've been noticed on the agenda. You can also ask any questions you have, direct staff to bring more information back to you at a later date. I will just advisory in working through the performance contract with their legal counsel. He did advise that if we're unable to enter the performance contract by April, that Johnson Controls will need to rescope the agreement and reprice the agreement because a lot of the assumptions that they have been time sensitive. And correct me if I've misstated that, but that was my understanding.
That is correct, and those are actually built into the numbers that you've already seen.
Do we have an April 24th meeting?
I don't believe we had any business items for that meeting, for that.
I mean, if you want a special meeting for that evening, we can certainly do that.
Well, I can't vote yes on documents I've not reviewed.
Yeah, that's my question here. I mean, are we supposed to be approving the contract for signature? We don't have a contract. I haven't seen
No,
one.
the terms and conditions are legally acceptable. I've reviewed those with their
Yeah.
counsel, but there wasn't a final contract until we know how the council wants to proceed with the project. If you were to not want to do the total scope, that would affect
Okay.
the project and then the project financing. So we were just kind of on hold until council decides how to proceed.
If we were to approve to proceed, is that enough for the current terms, or does it have to be signed by the end of
I
April?
believe that depends on the project financing because it's tied to the performance contract and the total scope of work.
Hopefully this will be helpful. So we've actually submitted a document. Kimberly's reviewed the T's and C's, but there's also scope, engineering calculations, and things of that nature. So they're in your possession right now. We have a term sheet from the financial institution. What you could do is approve the project in concept of the $13 million and the ability to enter into a financial transaction, and then empower the administration to work out the details. But they're they're in your possession right now, and we, could go over all the details with them to finalize that. So that's an option that would work.
Well, I'll just say, I mean, I think that, I assume we've never, I mean, this has been this lease, whatever you called it, lease purchase finance thing, has been an option for communities like ours for several years. We've never done one of these at all in the city of Stillwater. I mean, lots of other places have. I think that's part of the issue here is that no one seems to have any experience with this, certain specific financing avenue.
Well, the school district has certainly done lease purchase agreements, and I was part of that, but I would still like to see the agreement
Sure,
before
understood.
I approve it.
No,
Yeah, understood.
If it does help, it is it's a procurement vehicle and financing vehicle that has been used since the 80s. Ardmore, Oklahoma, I did one in Ardmore, Oklahoma, I don't know, 30 years ago. So if that's helpful.
OSU is still in a performance-based agreement, I believe, with Johnson Controls. We've talked to the city of Lawton. They did not use Johnson Controls. They went with another vendor, but it was a similar methodology based on that particular state statute.
So my comment here would just be that while I'm sure that all makes sense, I think we do need to figure out some of the details on our end and make sure we're all on the same page with financing. From a project perspective, I think it's a fantastic project. I think we should do this. I think we need to make these kinds of upgrades to our facilities. We need to make the upgrades to our lighting. It makes complete sense to me to say we're going to use the savings we make off of doing those projects to pay for these projects. It's, all of that makes sense. And so from my standpoint, from a council perspective, I think we need to go ahead with figuring this out, but I do feel like from a staff perspective, we need to have a better handle on what we're signing, what exactly that looks like. So I don't know what, from an action standpoint, that looks like, other than my perspective would be to say, let's get this thing done, make sure it meets bond council's requirements, but let's figure out how to get it done.
May I ask a question, Mayor?
Please.
The proposals that were submitted for the banking, what is the timeline for closing on that project financing?
The term sheet requires a interest to proceed, like signing the term sheet within I believe it's 8 days. So Friday of next week, just to say, we're interested in proceeding with you, and that term will continue for, it's not 60 days now, but it was 60 days on Friday.
Okay, thank you.
So would the council be amenable to a quick special meeting on the 24th?
I would.
I don't think that's a problem, yeah. I mean, if we need to get something done, yeah, I would just, if we can get everything together and everybody feels good about where we are, then yeah, let's.
Sorry, do we have the proposal sheet, the term sheet?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
These proposals, I believe, were due back on the 13th. It was a pretty quick turnaround, and we just wanted to have some idea of what that key interest rate would be to the project.
Understood. So I think if we're going to try to push this to a special meeting on the 24th, I don't know that we need to take specific action to table it or anything like that, but except to say.
No, we can just bring it back on the agenda and with recommendations from our financial advisors and bond counsel at the next meeting, along with the full
Can
contract.
you get all that stuff by the 24th?
We will do our best.
Okay. And let me emphasize, it's not that I distrust anybody, but I have a fiduciary responsibility to the city, and I need to read this stuff before I approve it.
Well, I want to make sure the staff has read the stuff before we approve it, because that doesn't feel like we've all been privy to all the different documents at this point. So I agree. I mean, it sounds like there's still a lot of unknown from our standpoint. So I appreciate the presentation, appreciate the work that you guys have done. I know this has been a long process. I know the Renewable Energy Task Force, and I appreciate the members that are here tonight being here. And again, I think it's a project that will benefit our community greatly. We just got to get our T's crossed and our I's dotted. I's dotted. Thank you, Caleb.
And I agree with
Yes,
all
sir.
that.
And to Melissa's point, those were submitted on Friday. No, that was a quick turnaround for the
Sure.
staff to review.
Understood. Thank you all.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. That takes us to item 8 on the agenda, ordinances. Item 8A is ordinance 3522, an ordinance closing a portion of the 15-foot general access easement, the south half of Section 34, Township 20 North, Range 2 East of the Indian Meridian, Payne County, Oklahoma, near property addressed as 4099 North Land Run Drive. Councilors.
I move to approve ordinance 3522.
Second.
I'm going to take that as a motion to advance it to second read.
I think it was
It's a second read
So
ordinance.
that's on second read? Oh. Yeah,
I move to adopt.
adopt. Ordinance is on second read is 3522. We have a motion to adopt the ordinance and a second. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, ordinance 3522 is adopted. Reports from the officers and boards. Ms. Carnley.
Request for an executive session pursuant to 25 OS Section 307B4 involving confidential communication between the City Council and City Attorney concerning a pending investigation, claim, or action involving Gelino CCC LLC. It is the opinion of the City Attorney that disclosure of this matter will seriously impair the ability of the City Council to process the claim or conduct a pending investigation, litigation, or proceeding in the public interest. A request for an executive session pursuant to 25 OS Section 307B1 of the Oklahoma Open Meeting Act for the purpose of confidential communications to discuss the consideration of specific current employees for the appointment of an interim city manager following the retirement of City Manager Norman McNichol, including determining compensation for the interim city manager.
Thank you. Mr. McNichol.
Thank you. This Saturday, we're excited about this, April 22nd, along with a lot of other events, will be a volunteer cleanup day for our historic Washington School. Registration will begin at 9 a.m. at Southern Woods Park, across the street from the school at 12th and Knobloch. We'll begin clearing trash and debris from the building at about 10 a.m. We would encourage people to wear clothing, gloves, and shoes appropriate for heavy cleaning. There's quite a bit of debris in there, but we will have roll-offs there and all the equipment we need. For more information, contact Michelle Charles at 405-742-8219 or email at michelle.charles@stillwater.org.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor.
Save the date for the Stillwater Animal Welfare's low-cost vaccine clinic for the public. The event will be Sunday, April 30th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at 707 East 8th Avenue. For more information, go to stillwater.org, and don't forget to follow Animal Welfare on Facebook for the latest updates.
Thank you so much. Councilor Hawkins.
The Stillwater Arts Festival is back. The Prairie Arts Center, located at 1001 Duck Street, 1001 Duck Street, will host this year's festival on April 21st from 12 to 8 p.m. and April 22nd from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. This two-day event will include art exhibition, art making activities, food trucks, live music, and more. For more information, go online to artscenter.okstate.edu. Can hardly wait. I love the Arts Festival.
Wonderful. Councilor Clark.
Tomorrow, Tuesday, April 18, is National Lineman Appreciation Day. This day honors the dedication and innovation of the men and women who work around the clock to keep the power going. Many thanks to our Stillwater Electric Utility staff for their faithful service to our community.
Absolutely. Thank you. Councilor Harden.
Tickets for the community center's Daddy-Daughter Prom are available online for purchase at stillwater.org/dancingwithdaddy. There are multiple dates and times for this event. First is Friday, May 5th from 7 to 8:30, and Saturday, May 6th. There are two times, one from 5 to 6:30 and a second one from 7 to 8:30. The prom will be held at Stillwater Community Center located at 315 West 8th. If you have questions or need additional information, call 405-533-8085. 8433.
Excellent. Those tickets will go fast. Sign up. At least in the past, they've sold those out. So make sure you get yours. I will let you all know that the Friends of the Stillwater Public Library have their annual used book sale, April 20th through 23rd. The sale's open to members only, members of the Public Library Friends, on Thursday from 5 to 8, and to the general public on Friday from 12 to 8, and Saturday from 10 to 5. So it's actually in conjunction with the Arts Festival. Yeah. So you can go buy some art, and then you can walk over to the library and buy some books. The event will finish up on Sunday with the $1 bag sale from 1:30 to 4. The event will be at the Public Library located at 1107 South Duck. For more information, go to stillwater.org/library. All right, at this time, I move that we recess the city council meeting.
Second.
A motion and a second to recess city council. Please vote. The vote of 5-0, the Stillwater City Council will now be in recess. At this time, I'm going to call to order the Stillwater Economic Development Authority meeting for April 17th, 2023. Questions, comments, or action on the consent docket?
Motion to approve the consent docket?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve consent. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the consent docket is now approved. Item 5A, receive a quarterly economic development update from the Chamber of Commerce and our old friend, new Chamber CEO, Elaine Zanotti. Elaine, I would love to hear about what it's like to sit on that side of the City Council meeting with former Vice Mayor Darlington there. You guys just chatting it up about what we're doing wrong and how you guys would be doing it differently if we were up here and all that
No,
sort of thing?
amazingly enough, I think to myself, my goodness, I did that, and you guys handle it with grace and very well.
Well, we're happy to have you back.
Thank you very much. I have looked forward to this, trustees and mayor, to give the first CETA report in my new position. It's 3 months today that I started in this position, and so find it very fitting that I get to do the first quarter report. I would be remiss if I didn't say Reagan Mitchell is the Economic Development Coordinator, and she is out in Kansas City this week at a conference for economic development. So she put the report together last week and got it to Patty in time, so hopefully you guys had a chance to look at it in your packet. Hopefully it met some of the needs that we had talked about earlier when I served on CETA as far as information. I know it was a lot, but I think we wanted to give you an example of the partnership we have with the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber, as well as the Department of Commerce. Reagan has done an amazing job in the almost 8 months that she's been in this position of getting out there and actually establishing those relationships. We would like to think that people call us all the time, the Chamber, to think about locating to Stillwater, but actually they call the state capitol most of the time because that just seems most familiar. And then our partnership with the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber and the surrounding communities, then they get the information out to us. And so that's how we do that. So I don't want to read everything to you, but I did want to give some highlights. One of the things, if the public isn't aware of, the Chamber and the City of Stillwater have a contract together to do economic development. And that amount is $300,000, and $150,000 of it is done for half a year, and then this last half of the year, payment was made. And so the monies and the things we're talking about is for this last half of the fiscal year for the city. One of the things that I'm very proud of is when I came on board with the Chamber and met with Reagan, and we talked about how to strengthen relationships with the city and doing economic development. One of the things that came out of it was that we definitely need to have a regular standing meeting with the city staff. Relationships don't just happen overnight, and we want to be able to have a relationship with the city staff, especially those that are doing economic development, to a point where it's easy to call them up and if we have questions, and we don't just do it when something comes into play. It also helps define roles. In our mind, the Chamber is the front porch into the community, and when businesses and opportunities are happening, usually the Chamber is the first step they do as far as coming into our community. We want to put that best foot forward. We also realize when it's time for us to, if it moves on to a bigger and more impactful situation, that is when the relationship with the city comes into play, and we step back and let the city do what they do best. So we are excited to say that on a monthly basis, Reagan and I meet with city manager as well as Brady Moore and Melissa Reams to talk about economic development, things that are happening. So we have those conversations so that things aren't done at the last minute, and that there's an understanding of what we have done as the chamber and what the city is going to do as far as next steps. So we are excited about those monthly meetings, and those happen the first Monday of the month. The other thing we've talked about doing is partnering with the City of Stillwater, the Chamber of Commerce, and Visit Stillwater to do a piece called Grow Stillwater. We have not done that in a while, and one of the things that we want to do is tell the story of Stillwater better to incoming individuals and businesses that want to locate in our community. And that Grow Stillwater piece then will be a piece of every piece of the chamber of what we do, the city, as well as Visit Stillwater, so that there is a very good representation of not only the basic things in our community, such as healthcare, school systems, housing, but there's also a portion of that as far as why are people moving here? What are those quality of life pieces that are happening within our community? So there's a better piece to do that. So we are in the process of doing that and looking forward to working with them on that. We also want to figure out a way for business retention and expansion program. And one of the things that Reagan and I talked about, and as I'm learning in this new role, is we have got to be out there and establishing regular conversations with those entities that work already with existing businesses to help ensure that those doors stay open and that there's opportunities for funding for them to expand, provide some enhancements to their businesses, that we have those relationships. So we have already met in February and March with the USDA Rural Development, the Oklahoma Finance Authority, the Oklahoma Department of Commerce, and Central Rural Electric to secure funding already in the amount of a $100,000 expansion project for an existing local business. Not ready to be announced what that is yet, but great partnerships, and those began by doing those. So this is for already small businesses that exist, and to me, that's important. Growing our economy is two things. One is it's obviously bringing economic things into our community, but it's also taking care of those entities that already exist in our community, so I'm excited about that. The next part is my favorite part of this report that you guys will see, and it's about current or in-progress chamber projects that are high-paying and high capital investment. The first thing I wanted to do is tell you that Reagan and I attended a Department of Commerce meeting at the Norman Chamber of Commerce and realized there are reports, and I believe you got 2 of them, on 2 entities that come in. To me, that is valuable information that you guys need to know in the public, and that's how many jobs is it creating? What kind of salaries are we talking about? What kind of jobs does it create, not only for the entity coming in, but if they have spouses or significant others that might also need jobs in this community, what types of those things happen? So I realized those were bulky. I won't go into detail on them because I'm not going to pretend to know what Reagan already knows, but hopefully you found that information helpful. I sent it on 2 projects, and we'll talk about that. One was the USA Rare Earth Project, and you got the economic impact analysis on that. And I had a direct quote from the project manager, Bob, and I want to read it so that everyone can hear it. We recently held our board of directors on a visit for a tour and board of directors meeting. We finished initial building construction, lighting repairs outside, painting the exterior of the building, new roof, and exterior concrete pads for industrial gases, argon and nitrogen. We are now focusing on industrial utilities inside the building and all the piping that goes with that. Scoping and engineering work for those activities is going on now. We identified the area for lab scaling manufacturing and have painted and put new LED lighting in that area, as well as epoxied the floor. Once we finalize the D round funding, there will be another flurry of activity to try and compress our time frame till initial production, which currently is the first quarter of 2024. And so far they plan to be on time. So that's exciting to hear about rare earth. We also have had some phone calls, nothing that has come into fruition yet, but we've had some interest because of rare earth locating here in Stillwater. We do have some subsidiary companies that are interested in looking at locating in Stillwater, so we're excited to see what happens with that. So that's rare earth. Project Mayflower, and I'm going to diverse just a little bit. I'm learning that these project names have pretend names because companies 9 times out of 10, if they are seriously looking, do not want their names for multiple reasons done. So this is Project Mayflower. We are excited about this. Reagan wanted me to make sure that this is the second contact with this company directly. They actually called Reagan directly at the second time. They are interested in the Armstrong building, very serious in the Armstrong building. So I wanted to let the public know and you know that the Chamber is responding to round 2 of the company's request for proposals. We've been told through our contact with the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber Chamber of Commerce that the client is very interested in the Stillwater community following our round 2 submission. This project represents $145 million capital investment. The project represents 218 direct jobs, 295 total jobs, direct and indirect. So that 295 would be if they have a spouse or significant other that would be coming into play. So we are very, very excited about that. Probably the most exciting one is C. It's called Project Wheelhouse, which I can now say is the hub. When we did this report to you guys earlier in the week, that was before the contract was signed. We are proud to say that Project Wheelhouse, or the hub, owned by the Tonkawa Tribe of Oklahoma, marks a renaissance in quality of life and entertainment projects in Stillwater. Outfitted with the top-of-the-line facilities and amenities, this main event-style venue will be a hub of activity and entertainment in our community. It's located on a 23-acre tract of land on Perkins Road, east of the railway. It was proposed as a site for development for this project. The land is zoned commercial general, and although it technically exists within the boundaries of Stillwater's industrial park. We are very excited. This represents a $30 million capital investment, 20 full-time jobs, and a plethora of other part-time options for our college and high school workforce. The employer also offers an earn and learn program that pays $2 per hour that an employee works towards the tuition of that employee. We are excited to say that pickleball courts inside and outside will be included in this project, a bowling alley, a movie theater, video games, both hand and virtual, and a sports bar and grill. And if you guys want to know what an example of that is like, they have done one in Tonkawa off of exit, I don't remember the exit, it's off I-35 in Tonkawa, but it's right there. We are very, very excited about this project, and we are going to work with them to do a formal announcement to that, but just want to let you guys know that I think this is one of those things that hits a home run, and I give all credit to Reagan. I came on this on the very end of it, so I'm excited about that. The other part of our contract with the city is to participate in regional and statewide cooperative marketing programs that provide access to business intelligence databases and joint recruitment opportunities. When we attended the program in Norman with the Department of Commerce, it was called Know My Community, Grow My Community. And that's where we found out that there is a database that's accessible to all of us who do economic development to provide that type of information that you guys would need about a potential business coming into the community. Both Reagan and I felt it was very, very important to share that information with you because that's what you want to know, right? If a business is coming to Stillwater, what is it that's going to do economically impact our community? So we are very, very excited about that. There's a reason why we partner with the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber, because they do a 10-county area to help figure out what businesses work. So what happens is a business will call them, they'll say what their interests are, and then that information goes out to all of us, and then we can figure out, do we have that building space? Do we have that land use? Does that make a good fit for our community? And so I'm very excited to say that so far that's worked out very, very well, and we are very excited. The last part of this is about offering educational programs and access to resource providers to assist small businesses and entrepreneurs. The Chamber of Commerce, we host a monthly legislative breakfast forum. It's the first Friday of the month from 8 to 9. It's a wonderful way to stay connected with our state legislators as far as what's happening at the state capitol and things that might impact our community. The Chamber is also working to revamp the programs available for business retention. One of the things that like I said, growing is also about keeping our businesses that are currently here open. So we are looking at partnering with Meridian Technology Center as well as some of the banks around town to do some sessions for small businesses so they understand what it means to do payroll, what it means to have insurance, what it means to do marketing if they don't have a big budget. Those types of things I think help instill the security that those businesses that already exist have an opportunity to have some learning sessions for them. I had the opportunity to present with Brady at a statewide conference for clerks, and Teresa, you were there as well. And we did a presentation on strategies to build a stronger and vibrant community. And I've never been more proud to be a part of this community as far as things that are happening with our downtown area, with Rare Earth and other things that are happening. And we also had a 5-panel that had a member from Vibrant Stillwater, Rebecca Eastham. We had Brady with the city, Corey Williams, who's doing the construction downtown, Reagan, who's doing economic development, and Jason Mays, who is working with Rare Earth to kind of do the manufacturing side. And we started with about 40 people, and then we had a session that the speaker could not make it, so we ended up with 50 additional people, and we got a wonderful email stating that it was one of their favorite presentations and that Brady and I really answered a lot of questions, and it was great dialogue. So proud to have that relationship, and I think that's coming just because of the relationships we're having with the city. So excited about that. And last but not least, one of the things that I find very passionate about is I'm going out and doing 100 visits in 100 days with our chamber members, and I'm doing it with a combination of our large businesses, our small businesses, and our community investors. And one of the things that we found was our businesses on Perkins Road are struggling. And in order to kind of help ease and let them know that the chamber understands and wants to help, we are doing for this month, we're starting it in April, it's called the Purchase on Perkins. And anyone who shops any of the businesses on Perkins Road has the opportunity to turn in their receipts to us. And at the end of the month, we're doing a $1,000 giveaway. Thanks to Simmons Bank, Oklahoma Community Credit Union, Bank First, RCB Bank, and the Stillwater Chamber actually put money in to do this giveaway. We have over 600 receipts that have been turned in, and it's halfway through the month, so we're very, very excited. If you shop at a chamber member, then your name is entered in twice. If it's a non-chamber member, you enter once. And I've been going around and talking with those businesses, and some know about it and some don't, and so it's been great to go in there and do that, but I hope it increases the need for us to understand that Perkins Road, it's going to be wonderful when it's done. We do make up words when we drive on it now, and we understand that, but these businesses are needing our support, so we are doing those initiatives. So I will stop at that point and answer any questions.
Thank you, Elaine. Trustees, questions?
Well, Elaine, I just would like to say that I really appreciate the level of detail in this report. It's a big contrast from what we've been used to as a city council, and I appreciate the effort that went into it. As we get, I know there's going to be some refinement to the contract, and there's going to be some deliverables in there.
Yep.
I look forward to seeing those plugged in here as well, but thank you for the leadership you're showing.
Thank you.
I would ditto that and just say, it sounds like you've just kind of been relaxing for the last 3 months. The Purchase on Perkins Road idea was, I think, a fabulous idea because I know those merchants are hurting. And so I saw that on social media and just thought, gosh, what a great idea. And so I hope that's really successful for the next several months. Oh, and thank you again for all the detail and the reports that came from Oklahoma City, because I think they're, I'm a geek, and so I think all of that's interesting.
It's so great to see you in this role. It's so exciting to see you in this role and know that you're representing our community as people are approaching and thinking about our community for business. You seem so well suited, as is evidenced in the reporting. It's just really helpful for us to know what those dollars are going towards. That transparency is really beneficial, I think, sitting here where we are now. Just keep it up.
Good. All right.
Do you have on Mayflower, I assume, I know Reagan's the lead, but do you have specific issues or things that you know that they're interested in that we need to be ready to deal with? Have they been able to meet with city staff around
I don't think
and
they
that kind of
have at
stuff
this
yet?
point gotten
Not
to
yet.
that point, and they understood that Reagan was going to be out of town this week at a conference, and so I think probably when she gets back, that'll be the next step.
Okay, good. Cool. Great stuff. Good to see you.
Thank you. It was good to be here. Love this community, and not being on that side of it means I can maybe be on this side of it and make a difference, so appreciate it.
We appreciate the work you're doing, and certainly Reagan,
Yes.
I've interacted with her a couple of times as well, doing great work there too, and I know a lot of your staff is getting geared into their roles, and we're excited to see what you guys do over the next several months.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Elaine.
Thanks.
Item 5B is consider approving a downtown TIF implementation policy recommendation for GMC Properties Small Business Enhancement.
Yes. Good evening, trustees. Brady Moore, Assistant City Manager. An application is before you to review tonight for a small business enhancement assistance that was submitted by GMC Properties LLC for an exterior facade improvements at 202 South Main Street. Just as a quick reminder, the Small Business Enhancement Program is valid for exterior building improvements only, and assistance is not to exceed 50% of the actual expenditure up to $15,000. This project at 202 South Main Street is an exterior remodel that includes a new awning on the north and east walls and new glass windows on the north side. Renderings of the work, the details, and the cost estimates of the project have been included in your agenda packet. The total project cost is $35,400, so the total amount of assistance requested is that maximum $15,000. On March 27th, the TIF 3 committee reviewed the application from GMC Properties and found that it met the criteria outlined in the implementation guide for assistance. The committee voted 3-0 with 1 abstention to recommend this proposal to you this evening for your consideration. Funding is available in Fund 856, which is our downtown TIF 3 fund for this development agreement. I have a motion, but I'll pause now to answer any questions. And as well, the owners, GMC Properties LLC, Mr. Fritchie and Mr. Cooper are here this evening if you have any specific questions on the project.
Thank you, Brady. Trustees?
I am curious about why the glass wall on the north is being replaced, but not the glass wall on the east is being replaced. Not that it really matters, I'm just curious.
Just speak in the mic and state your name and address.
I'm Chuck Cooper. I'm with GMC Properties. And the north wall, the top and bottom plates are rotted. That's why I haven't replaced those windows. The east side's fine.
Okay.
So,
all right, thank you.
any other questions? Or?
Is there a specific, is there a business that's going to be in there? Or
No,
is
it's
just
the
getting it
building
ready
empty
for-
right now.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'm always excited about renovation to those facilities. That's what this is for.
Absolutely.
Is to help make sure we can keep those buildings looking nice and ready to go for the next tenant. So appreciate you being here.
right.
Yeah. And they did mention at the TIF meeting that same question was asked, and they said they've had 2 or 3 prospective tenants, but they wanted to see the improvements first before they come in.
Sure.
So it meets the scope of our program for sure.
What's your recommendation for us, Brady?
Yep. So the motion is motion to adopt downtown TIF Implementation Policy Committee's recommendation for the GMC Properties LLC Small Business Enhancement Funding Request and authorize staff and special counsel to enter into a small business enhancement agreement with GMC Properties LLC for the exterior improvements at 202 South Main Street.
Trustees?
Motion to accept staff's recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the request. Please vote. It's approved with a vote of 5-0. Looking forward to seeing those improvements. Any reports from the officers of the board? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So
Motion to
moved.
adjourn.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Sita, please vote. With a vote of 5-0, we are now adjourned. At this time, I will call to order the Stillwater Utilities Authority meeting for April 17th, 2023. Action on the consent docket, trustees.
Motion to approve the consent docket.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve consent. Please vote. Vote of 5-0, the consent docket's approved. Under general orders, we have consider award of a bid for breakers to GE Grid Solutions. Mr. McClenny.
Good evening, John McClenny, Procurement Manager. Lauren is out of town, so he couldn't be here tonight, and my ability to answer questions will be somewhat limited, but I have 2 engineers here to back me up if necessary. On November 16th, 2020, the trustees approved the 6th Avenue Transmission and Distribution Relocation Project, and this is in anticipation of the rebuild of Highway 51. Staff has been working with Burns & McDonnell to procure long lead time materials and equipment. Specifications and bid documents for 69 kV circuit breakers for Kinsey and hospital substations were prepared and bids solicited. 69 kV circuit breakers are necessary to build out the new terminals at each substation. We received 1 bid from GE Grid Solution LLC in the amount of $524,430. GE would not accept our terms and conditions, which will require additional time to negotiate, and the city attorney has reviewed those proposed terms and conditions and provided us with direction. I will note this is the 3rd attempt to procure this equipment, and due to supply chain issues, long lead times, and the fact that there are very few suppliers of this type of equipment, we're unlikely to get a better deal. The prices listed in the bid are valid until April 22nd, therefore staff is asking for approval at this time, and the 3 of us will try to answer questions.
You're not going to stand up here and explain to us what a 69 kV breaker.
It's a great big circuit breaker. I assume it's like the ones on the wall,
Just
except
like
just
those,
bigger.
Except it's huge.
Except it's 69 kilovolts.
Trustees, questions for Mr. McClenny?
Is there anything in the, you said they provided markups in the negotiations. Is there anything that would require additional approval?
I think I can answer that question. The bid document allowed them to take exceptions to certain things that they did take a couple of exceptions which have been reviewed by the department and the director and the manager's office from a technical aspect. I reviewed the legal documents. They supplied some additional terms and conditions, but they were only applied to the extent that the existing contract documents were silent, so very few provisions were there. I reviewed those and provided a recommendation to Lauren Smith, Electric Utilities Director, on Friday that they were acceptable to proceed with the contract. So they've been reviewed from a legal standpoint and a technical standpoint.
Thank you.
So we have agreement between us and the vendor.
We do.
Excellent, thank you.
Well, then what's a recommendation for us, John?
We recommend a motion to award the bid for the 69 kV circuit breakers to GE Grid Solution, authorize the general manager to execute the contract in the amount of $524,430. Would say upon satisfactory negotiation of terms and conditions, but it looks like we're kind of already there, and authorize expenditures up to $576,873, and that includes a contingency.
Trustees?
Move to approve staff recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the recommendation. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that bid is accepted or approved. That motion's approved.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Thanks.
I'm looking forward to seeing that breaker box that those go in.
Could you bring it in short too?
Yeah.
We can take you outside and show you.
Any reports from the officers of the board? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn SUA. Please vote. Vote of 5-0, the Story Utilities Authority is now adjourned. And at this time, I will reconvene the Stillwater City Council meeting. We are at item 11 on the agenda. Is there a motion to enter an executive session for the purposes requested by the city attorney?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second to enter executive session. Please vote. The vote of 5-0, we will now enter executive session. All right, is there a motion to reconvene city council?
Motion to reconvene?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to reconvene city council in regular session. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, we'll now back from executive session and regular session. Ms. Carnley, any recommended action on the executive sessions?
No recommended action on either executive session.
Thank you. If there's nothing further from the council, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
With a motion and a second to adjourn the city council, please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the Stillwater City Council is now adjourned, and that concludes our meetings for the evening. Thank you.